And once again, thank you for joining us for the Viking Coaches Show. Here each week, we appreciate our sponsors, Big Mike's Coffee Shop, located on Pinola Street in Newland. Also, we appreciate Kenny Johnson Staging and Entertainment for all their sponsorship and all the support they provide for our coaches shows, our post-game wrap-ups during the course of basketball season and football season. If you have any need for either of those folks, between needing a hot cup of coffee on a cold day like this, if you can get out to get to it, and they're open and available, absolutely take advantage of the services that Mike and Jackie Nelson offer over at Big Mike's Coffee Shop. And if you need to set up a stage to, I don't know, to entertain people during this frigid cold, I don't know if Kenny would get out in this kind of weather, but he might. I don't know. But any kind of need you might have for entertainment, for concerts, for events you've got going on, you can track down Kenny, and he and his staff be happy to work with you and give you options as far as the different services that they offer. Here with head coach Allison Phillips of the Lady Vikings. And coach, girls last week, couple of contests, back in conference play against Madison and against Owen. And I guess starting with the game down at Madison on Tuesday night, again, I think a common thread with both these games last week was how fast a start you all got off to. Can you speak just a little bit about how important it was for y'all just to get off and running and just really you put those games away as far as large leads very early?
Yeah, I was happy with our offensive production and our defensive production in both those games. We kind of knew, after playing them the first time, second time through the conference is always really interesting because I think you always get a more seasoned, improved version of everybody, and so we don't. The message in the locker room was, don't take those teams lightly. If you beat somebody by 30 before, it's really easy to get kind of comfortable and feel like, well, you just walk in and win. But that's not the case in our conference. In my opinion, I've definitely been the team that's been beat by 30 and then come back and taken somebody to the wire, the second round through. So I always try to make sure that we're prepared and, we try to make sure we scouted them and we're ready to roll. And with Madison, I thought we just got off to a really fast start. I thought we were able to attack with a little bit of good half court pressure. They were very prepared for our press and we kind of knew that. So we had, in a counter move in a lot of ways prepared with half court defensive traps and things like that. We knew we wanted to make them, uncomfortable in their offensive set, and they're young and they've got a lot of sophomores and underclassmen on that team. So, you can definitely tell that they get a little bit more uncomfortable with ball pressure. And I thought we did a really good job of taking advantage of that early and jumping out to a good lead, and being able to maintain that lead and continue to score. That was something we've talked about through the course of the season is being able to score consistently, being able to score in other people's gyms, not just at home. And I was super proud to do that down in Madison, which I feel like is always a tough environment to play in.
The game prior to that Madison contest, the game with Mitchell was a little bit of a slower start for you all.
Yeah.
I know in between those times in practice, between the Mitchell game and the Madison game, did you all emphasize the importance of getting off to a quick start and doing anything differently defensively as far as intensity or like you said, lack of complacency goes?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just really push and pace. Like when we're in transition, that's when we're the most dangerous, and we know that. And sometimes it's really easy to get in situations where you start to slow down a little bit against certain teams because of the ability level of that team. And, it's just reiterating. And our guards, Addison Herbert does a really great job of keeping us focused on that. She is always the first to say, we got to push it. And that's how she, really kind of spurs us along offensively. And so just coming out and knowing that we needed to get out and transition and run, Caroline, her and Marley have started joking back and forth. Marley tends to be the referee's favorite and Caroline tends to not. And so at Madison, it was hilarious because I think Marley shot 11 free throws in the first quarter.
Yeah.
And Caroline, there's pretty equal in the amount of takes that they had to the basket, but she didn't go to the free throw line one time. So we had really emphasized last week finishing, we're for free throws. And at one point on the so
sorry, losing a little bit of connection there. We're kind of breaking up a little bit. Sorry about that. Hello? Oh. we have a freeze situation here.
It was funny because they were both giving. Oh, you lost me.
Are you with us? Can you hear me now?
I can see you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it went kind of froze just a little bit. If you don't mind reiterating just a little bit there. Of course, you mentioned about, of course, Caroline and Marley and their differences as far as being a risk friend versus foe there.
Yeah, I was just saying, Caroline didn't get to the free throw line at all, the whole first quarter. And she had equally as many takes to the basket as Marley did. But Marley shot 11 free throws in the first quarter. So just, it just depends. We had the same officials as we did at Hendersonville. So,
right.
Caroline already had a little chip on her shoulder going into that game. And it was pretty consistent as it was in Hendersonville for her. She didn't get any calls at all.
So when you off the side, when you see that kind of thing where you have the same official you had on that Friday night, I know that didn't go the best in the world a couple of weeks ago as far as, of course, result, but just an interaction. Did you feel like that was any bit improved on your end as far as that contest with Madison?
It was great for us because, we know ultimately all those Asheville officials, we're going to have them when we play at Heritage. We're going to have them when we play at Polk. We're going to have them when we play at Madison. And we're probably going to have them for the conference tournament. So, it's never one person's fault. It's never the official's fault, and we've reiterated that to them. As a high school kid, you do tend to get a little bit of a thought process. Well, maybe somebody, doesn't like me or, they don't call a certain way for me. But, I think the biggest thing for all of our players is just being able to play through the adversity. That it is what it is. They're not going to give you every call that you want. We don't give them every call that they want in practice, either, just to kind of prep for that. So it was great to see Marley get off to a good fast start. She can do that. She can be so dangerous downhill, her and Caroline both. So I love seeing them attack the basket. We're preaching finish right now more than anything, because we know that there's a really good chance they're not going to get those foul calls. And Madison does a great job of walling up and really taking away a lot of stuff in the paint. So you have to be smart. We've worked a lot this week on jump shots, on, stopping and popping. That's Charity Alice was amazing at that. She was so little, she knew not to take it in amongst the trees. She would just stop and pop, and those little 5-10 foot jump shots were money for her. So, Caroline also has that ability to elevate and shoot jump shots, and Marley does too. So just helping them, grow their game and, elevate a little bit to whatever the refs are calling, we can counter that.
And of course, I got to mention Hallie Johnson as well in that first half of that game with Madison. She gave you all 11 of her points in the first half, and really her and Marley just the only two in double figures. But yeah, it seemed like Hallie's shot kind of came around a little bit in that game too. Yeah,
Hallie shoots super well at Madison. She might be one of the only kids that do that, which I'm thankful going into the conference tournament playing down there, seeing her shot come back the way it has, and Hallie has put the time and energy into her shot. And a lot of shooters stuff is just rhythm, and getting her back in her rhythm has been beautiful to see. I think that's only going to continue to get better as we go throughout the season. So I look forward to her shooting well, moving forward down the stretch.
The game with Owen, before I go though, of course, you held Madison to just 6 field goals, by the way. They made 6 baskets for the entire game. I can't think of a lot of games at the varsity level that I've seen that and that few contributions. I think that speaks really well to y'all's defensive intensity and really picking up the press and their struggles with trying to match that intensity. But yeah, just a great overall defensive game. And then
I thought we did really good with the rotations too. Like I thought our rotation players came in and held them just as good defensively, which is something we've really seen that group step up and be able to do super well. They can hold a lead and they can score in bunches. I thought, it's so fun to watch them play. It's so fun to watch Emma and Kylie and Kesley get out there and just be absolute dogs, and, the one thing I will say in those games is like, we're never going to tell them not to play hard. We might try to put them in a zone and we're always respectful, and I've learned that down the stretch. You have to be respectful of the opponent and never try to score up team many points, but defensively, I'm not going to tell them not to get stops. I might tell them not to steal the ball, on a pick or something like that. But the way that they have just elevated their defense and kept people in front of them, they just do a really, really good job of always playing hard and getting after it. And it's just a lot of fun. It was fun to see, our bench get up and get excited. And, just really get to watch them play extended minutes. And it was really cool.
Speaking of extended minutes, we'll talk about the game with Owen, I guess, from Thursday night. Of course, that game was moved up a day because of the winter weather that came in this past weekend. You started 5 seniors on Thursday night. You were able to start some of the ladies that don't ordinarily start. Can you speak a little bit about just the decision to go ahead and give those girls some opportunity? Was that more based on, was it an effort issue, effort question? Was it because of the opponent? What was kind of your mindset in having those girls come out in your starting lineup this game?
Gosh, they're just fun to watch play basketball. They really are. Honestly, they play so hard. They deserved it. They've earned everything that they've been given. It was nothing too, thought out like on our part. It was just like, hey, we know that they can go out and be dogs and they're fun to watch and they're going to get after it. And sometimes it's good to just change it up. It's good to change it up, especially at home. They're going to start on senior night, obviously, but they deserve to start. They've earned it. They've worked hard. And I thought they did a great job of setting a good tone for the game and going out and playing hard. And, the interesting thing, when Yanni came, it was so funny because I think the average height of our seniors group is about 5'4", maybe 5'3". And then you have Yanni who's 6'2", which you can definitely tell she's not from Avery County. But it was really cool, just to see them go out and play super well with her and just to see the good chemistry of them all on the court. And, they're great basketball players. And I said in the locker room, I said, and, I don't care that people hear me say this, every one of those girls could start for any team in our conference, and it speaks to who they are as teammates. It speaks to who they are as human beings, that they are willing to sacrifice the amount of playing time to be a part of Avery, and that they love Avery that much, and they love their school, and they love our program, and they love our culture. It's such a huge blessing to get to coach them, and just any opportunity that I get to watch them play basketball is so much fun. I'm over here praying time to slow down because I just really enjoy every day with them. They've truly transformed our culture and our entire program. So, they're due as many starts as I can give them.
And it's amazing how many times you'll have where you have players that maybe don't get the number of minutes that perhaps your starters do, that when they come in, it feels like, well, everything's going to be disjointed. Yeah, it's not going to be as good a flow. But honestly, when you started, again, Yanni being in the middle helps, of course. Like I said, that definitely helps. But defensively, golly, those girls were all over them defensively. And, when you had, even substitute back in, those girls, I think, played, 4 minutes of the quarter? I think the first 4.5 minutes, you had them out there, and they didn't miss a beat. And you all outscored them 30-2 in that first quarter. I mean, it just amazed me to see just how you don't see that level drop as far as intensity goes. Even just in talent, there's not there's not gaps that you see with a lot of teams, that when you pull players off the bench, you might think, well, some teams can go 7 deep with their talent, but then the rest are kind of, your JV players or players that maybe don't do as much. But again, you showed that at least 10 deep you can go with what you have.
Yeah. And, I tell them every day. I mean, we could go 15 deep if we had to. There's not a kid on that bench that I don't trust to go in and do their job and do it at a high level. I think the biggest thing is just you get comfortable with a certain group, and you get in a groove with a certain group, and that's important. But we've had early foul trouble all year, and we've had to really rely on people like Kylie and Callie and Emma, to come in and fill big roles and big moments. And there's never been a moment that I felt like it was too big for them. Even though they don't get the extended minutes all the time, there's every kid on that team has played super big moments in games throughout the stretch. And, Kesley just a knockdown shooter. She has no, hesitation at all. Kylie does a great job running the point guard. Emma's tenacious on defense. She's just all over the place. And I between her and Chella, it's a real close fan favorite of who everybody likes to watch get out there and play. And it's really cool. It's cool to be a part of, and cool to get to have them in my program and get to spend time with them and watch them play. I mean, every day in practice can get really chippy, and it's super fun as a coach. I think they're guarding Caroline and Marley and Hallie and, Yanni and Addison on a regular basis. Like, they're not scared of anybody at all, and that's really cool. Like the way that they guard them in practice is how that you see them play. And that pushes those other girls to be better. And it pushes them to just get that much better defensively because they don't care. Like if we run our first string against our second string, it's really even a lot of the time. So
not as much stress with foul trouble, I guess, per se.
No.
So that's all right. Emma can go and foul as much as she needs to.
Yeah. I did tell her, I said, please don't try to foul out in the first quarter. I'd like for you to play, the whole game.
For the game. But again, defensively, you only gave up, again, 6 baskets to Owen. Yeah. So 2 great opponents there, just defensive was just absolutely locked in. And just giving up 17 points to Owen, 21 to Madison. Of course, not every team will be like that. Of course, coming up on, of course, with that game back on Thursday, again, Marley with 19 again. Caroline got her shooting touch. Maybe the different officials had a reason for that. I don't know, but she got all those in the first half as well. Tilly gave you 7, Callie gave you 7. So you had a pretty balanced scoring effort. Yanni with 11 in that matchup. So just a great overall win. But of course, weren't able to play Hampton on Monday due to the weather. So the next matchup you've got coming will be with the Lady Cougars at Mountain Heritage. And of course, going down to Burnsville for that one with already a win in your pocket at home against them. What are kind of your expectations going into that matchup, and how are you girls getting ready to get prepared for playing again another a tough opponent coming up with the Lady Cougars?
Yeah, we know down the stretch it just gets harder every game. So I'm excited to go play there. I love playing at Heritage. My girls don't always love me saying that, but I feel very at home at Heritage. We've played so many games there. It felt like the conference tournament was literally there every year for about 5 years.
Right.
So, I mean, I've had more great moments at Heritage than I can count. I've had more hard moments at Heritage than I can count. I think it's a cool environment. I think it's a great gym to shoot in. I am excited to go down there and play them again. We've got to take care of business, and we know that. And, that was kind of the message last week is use these games, or maybe the opponent's not as strong, to get our shooting touch back. Be super confident when people play us a zone, because both of them set in a zone, and we struggled with that a little bit, initially with Mitchell and some other teams. So we were like, yeah, this is a good opportunity for us to get more confident and just gain the confidence we need to go into the second half of the conference at a high clip. And I feel like that we're ready to go. I mean, it stinks not being able to practice today. We didn't get to practice yesterday, but we have a team like Google Doc that we're currently working through right now to watch film. And the insight and the detail that they have done watching the film back is just so cool. I was reading through it this morning, just like blown away at their basketball IQ, at their commitment to, anything that they can do to get better. Like, all of us are kind of stuck at home right now, and that stinks, but they're watching film, they're getting prepared mentally, physically. I can't expect them to be on the court right now, but we can control what we can control, and we can watch film and hopefully learn from that.
When you talk about their basketball IQ, do you mean that in a sense like tendencies of opponents? Are they that detailed as far as saying, well, player A, I noticed that she really likes to go to her right, or she doesn't?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like we go, like our scouts really intense, and I feel like our girls do a great job at that. Yeah, as a coaching staff, I feel like we've gotten really kind of settled into that. Austin's an amazing scout. Too, like he at one point we literally had an opposing team's every inbound play on a clipboard. Like we were, we don't really shy away from scouting people if we can, just so that we feel prepared. I feel like luck favors the prepared. I tell my girls that a lot, and anything we can do to be ready for the opponent, we know that they're doing the same thing to us. So, just initially watching the film back and some of the things that the girls put was just, we didn't take very good timing offensively in the first half of that game. We went into halftime, with a 1-point lead, and we absolutely looked like crap in our half court sets. and we were shooting so quickly, and a lot of our points came in transition, and they came from the free throw line because we were able to get downhill on them, or they came off second chance points. So we know that we can do a better job in a half court set. We know that we need to, use both sides of the floor, but we were just taking way too quick of shots in the first half. Ball gets to one side of the floor and whoever touched it first was shooting it. That's not how we need to run our offense against anybody. And so we've got to do a better job of, balancing the floor and making the defense work. And we didn't make Heritage work at all in the first half. We've got to do a better job down there, because they're going to be ready for us. They're going to try to slow us down. It wouldn't surprise me if they try to run some kind of half court trap or a press or something like that. We've got to be ready to attack that and, go from there.
Based on what you've seen from Heritage on film, have they improved since the first matchup you had with them? Have you seen them do anything differently or things that they've maybe improved upon?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately they beat Hendersonville down there, and watching them slow Hendersonville down, watching them handle Hendersonville's pressure the way that they did, the second chance points that they got, Heritage is always going to improve. Susie's a great coach. She's always going to, take them, get the very most out of them regardless of who she has. So, I fully expect them to be even more prepared down there and an even better opponent. With that being said, I feel like we've also gotten a lot better too, and that we're nowhere near playing our best basketball, and hopefully that's continuing to come. But I do think that we're getting a little more confident on the offensive end. So as long as our defense can maintain and we can make them shoot hard shots like we want to, and be able to put shots in on the other side, then we'll be okay.
Okay, and I know you've got another game scheduled for Saturday. Don't want to forget about Hampton. I know you weren't able to play them at home, but you'll be going down, I guess, to their gym.
Yeah.
Recently renovated after the storm and everything hit them, so I know they're excited about having their gym back, and it's a unique place to play in. But I know that talking with Coach Gage in the past, he's spoken about how the importance of Hampton being on the schedule really related to their physicality of play, and how they will try to push around, and they'll make you play more physical brand of ball. Is that something when you see Hampton? Do you see that from them as well? And do you expect something along those lines as well when you go down there, weather permitting and everything on Saturday?
Absolutely, and they're fantastic shooters, and they'll be great shooters in their gym. So our goal is to be able to defend the perimeter well. I think we have a massive size advantage on them, especially if we go big. So I think, finding ways this time in the season to play different opponents that you're not so used to, because that's what playoffs are going to look like. Who knows what we get. When we got Andrews last year, we were so excited, but then also as coaches, we were a little bit like, they can get hot from three, and we've got to be able to defend the three better. And that's always something that I am challenging our players to do a better job of. Is defend the perimeter and make people shoot jump shots versus set threes, so that's something, I think we can really take to the bank against Hampton, is trying to keep them off rhythm, making them shoot shots that they don't necessarily want to shoot, using our pressure against them because they're not an opponent that's seen us a whole lot. So it'll be a cool game. I'm excited for them to get back in their gym. I couldn't imagine what they've had to go through the past couple years with being out of their gym and stuff like that. That's such a hardship. So they're super great, historically great program, and I look forward to playing them.
Yeah, again, you look at playing a team like Hampton, of course, like you said, it's that surprise of maybe not seeing them all the time and just a different look and a different setup. And again, you'll have back-to-back nights playing with a Friday road trip and then another Saturday road trip. Talk a little bit about the JV team. I know the JV girls, they've not been able to get a lot of games in because of the lack of the programs with Owen and Madison and the week before that. So you're looking at, almost 3 weeks or so since the Hendersonville game being the last time they actually got to play. How is that team kind of coping with that? And does Hampton have a JV girls team that they'll get to play 2 this week, or will it be just the Mountain Heritage game?
Yeah, they do have a JV girls, and so hopefully they'll get to play 2 games. We're doing our kids a disservice as a conference if we don't make some adjustments. I think, and North Carolina as a whole, if we don't make some adjustments, like we've talked before, Tennessee's done the 6-quarter rule for years and years and years and years and years. And you see how great their women's basketball programs are. There were years where we would go down to Cloudland and they would have 15 kids in their entire program. JV and varsity. And it was perfectly fine because they could play 2 quarters of JV, 4 quarters of varsity. You could make it work and mix and match. Kids were getting to play more. Ultimately, we've got to do something for our JV girls. It's just unfair. Everybody else has been playing for the past 3 weeks and they've done nothing but practice, which, kudos to them and Austin and Lexi for keeping them in the gym. But it's also hard to keep a kid engaged for 3 weeks and never get to play a game. That's just really rough. And, they've done a really good job of staying in the gym and continuing to work. But it is frustrating. And, we definitely hear that and see that. And if there was something more I could do, I would be all for it. I wish as a conference we would figure out something else because, relying on these other teams like Owen, Madison, Mitchell, if they're not going to have JV programs, then we need to find somebody else for these girls to come in and play on those nights.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's different options to think about. One is, with it being a conference issue, it's nothing that would be a state issue. And I don't know how a 6-quarter rule would jive with the states, I guess, whatever their mandates and rules are.
Yeah.
But even changing, which is just tough to say, to even come up with a different kind of conference for them, even, if you needed to.
Just like maybe, one year we had Heritage would come to us at a home game. We would go send our JVs. What's hard is like our staffs are mixed, and so it would be great in one sense, but that's splitting Susie's staff on a night that she's playing on the road, that's splitting my staff on a night that I'm playing on the road. That's not fair. There's got to be a better way for us to do this. I don't know what it is. I think it's something we're going to have to sit down and look at. And the problem is there's very few women's basketball coaches in the AD's meeting. In fact, there's probably none. So, it's not necessarily a conference issue. It's a women's basketball in the conference issue. So, maybe moving forward, now that we know who our conference is, we can figure out something for them just as women's basketball coaches sit down and figure something out. I know Susie and I have talked a lot about trying to get those girls some extra games in because it does stink. They played a battle with Hendersonville. They ended up losing, and then they don't get another game again until they play Heritage. Well, all the teams have split. So we beat Heritage JVs beat Hendersonville beat us. So if that happens again, who gets to go to the conference championship?
You got a coin flip or something, right?
Yeah. I mean, and that stinks. Your whole season comes down to a coin flip. Like, it's hard. It's just really hard to keep those girls engaged.
My follow-up was going to be, how much have you spoken to the other varsity coaches and even the current JV coaches about trying to schedule extra games? Maybe instead of just playing those teams twice, you might schedule an extra Saturday game or something where you don't have maybe a varsity matchup going on that certain day, and you do just JVs and just to have those guys there.
Well, I mean, we even talked about letting our JVs play Owen. I mean, I'd feel pretty confident with them going out there against Owen. So I don't know. A lot of the teams that don't have JVs don't want to fool with it, and I get that. But I can promise you long term, you want to fool with it, because if your varsity team's ever going to be really good, you've got to have a feeder program,
Yeah. When you're only scoring 17 in a game or scoring 20 in a game and that being very consistent, it's going to be hard. It's a tough thing to do with, I know. And I appreciate the effort that all you and your staff do to keep these girls motivated, to keep our teams, focused. I think people underestimate the amount of time and energy that takes.
Austin and Lexi have done a great job, just keeping them practicing, keeping them in the weight room, and trying to help them, see the forest through the trees, that they've got a lot more basketball hopefully to play. And a lot of those girls, are multi-sport athletes too. So, it's just hard. It's hard to keep them locked in on basketball when it's like, well, I've only got 3 more games left, but those 3 games are going to stretch out for a month and a half. So
that's rough. Maybe there could be like a JV Christmas or JV Thanksgiving showcase or something where, you have JV teams come in from different spots, kind of like you would a Christmas tournament, but just do it just to give those players 2 or 3 extra games out of it.
Yeah. We need to figure out something for them. It's definitely something that's not getting any better. So we're gonna have to make some adjustments there one way or the other, hopefully next year. Because we've got great middle school kids that are coming up, and we want them to be able to get as many games as they can, playing JV as much as possible. So, that you only can improve if you get to play, and you get to practice and you get the time to do that. So hopefully we'll be able to figure that out moving forward.
Well, we hope any athletic directors or anyone catching this will kind of think about that and ponder it, and maybe solicit some other additional comment or advice about how to handle that, because that does seem to be a distinct issue, especially considering they don't have state tournament to play, and right now they don't have a conference tournament to speak of other than one game, just to top 2 teams. So it's an unfortunate situation, and again, I think it's almost a JV issue across the board too, except JV boys basketball, even with football, you couldn't play a regular conference in JV football. You had to go and get Smoky Mountain Conference schools to come, and you have to kind of change your dynamic towards 7th, 8th, and 9th grade players, and which is just something than everyone else, just to try to kind of, I don't want to say get by, but just to kind of help that sport survive and help that.
And you don't think about stuff like that in like the big picture until it bites you in the butt. But it really, I won't get into football a whole lot, but I don't think that we've done ourselves any favors by having our middle school programs play JV football. Like, that's been a disaster. And so, God bless, a 7th grade boy and a 9th grade boy are 2 very different physical beings, and I think we got to realize that, same thing. We've fought for years for our middle school conference to be the games to be extended and to get more games and things like that. Thankfully, the Recs picked up a lot of that stuff. And, that those kids, we need to be playing more games and longer. And I know that's hard with officials and logistics and all the things, but I think it's also something that if you really want to be great at something, you've got to put the time and energy into those younger kids.
And you're seeing that through your girls. You see, your girls are a great example of how they play through the middle school program against each other and with each other. Yep. And they play a lot of summer showcases, summer travel ball, summer camps, just all that extra time playing together. Yep. Whether you practice as well, but a lot of games under their belts. And at the JV level, a lot of games they've had opportunities under their belts in the previous years, because this wasn't an issue 3 or 4 years ago. At times where these girls were coming up, they had opportunities. And, my fear is that, again, with that lack of opportunity, you're going to see a lack of maybe even a participation, where girls just don't want to come out,
Or, we're already seeing that at the middle school. Like, again, I don't like the 6th, 7th, and 8th. I think middle school should be 7th and 8th, or you should have JV teams. You have a ton of 6th grade girls are very different than 8th grade girls maturity wise, physically. I think if you would have looked at, and Addison Dellinger's a real prime candidate for this, so I'll get on a little bit of a soapbox. Addison Dellinger as a 7th grader could barely catch a pass. So if we would have said, okay, well, give me your best 5 in 7th grade, it might be very different than, who we have right now and how kids have come and they've worked and they've adapted and they've really outperformed what they were in middle school. You can't look at a 6th grade girl and tell me she's going to be a great high school basketball player, or she's not going to be a great high school basketball player. Like, that's not fair. I mean, girls grow, they develop, they mature. It's insane to limit your athletes to what they were in 6th grade. I mean, who peaks in 6th grade?
Maybe, but I don't think
maybe.
So.
But like, we've got to do a better job of giving these kids time to develop and time to play and, more of an opportunity to work on skills, and I'm coaching a 2nd and 3rd grade rec boys team. Okay. People are probably going to hate me because we're like doing nothing but straight fundamental drills right now, because I'm sick of seeing kids come to 5th, 6th grade and not be able to dribble. I'm not gonna play the game of, we'll give it to the one kid on the team that can dribble, everybody else get out of the way, and let's try to win a rec championship. I don't give a hoot about that. I care about my kids learning how to dribble and pass and be fundamental players. That's what you see with our seniors. That's why they can go into any game, even though they're not necessarily starting a lot, and there's not a drop off, because those girls know how to dribble and they know how to pass, and they're great basketball players. And people like Kenny did a really good job of not only focusing on Hallie, but he focused on the whole group. And then Ricky and them did a great job of focusing, on the whole group. And that's what it takes. That's what Heritage has done for years and years. And, it took us a while to get our heads out of the sand and really do the same thing. But when it works, don't try to fix it. If it, what we were doing for a long time was just taking the best kid here and the best kid there. Well, if your kid's the best in third grade and you don't put in any time and energy to getting better or to everybody else around him, then he's going to be like the kid from Owen. He's going to be the best on a team that's very below average, and he's going to live a rough life,
Yeah. You're beaten up, and you have to,
trying to be a one-man show, and that stinks.
Yeah, I mean that's not easy. That's not easy. It sounds like you're advocating for the role of conference commissioner, and I congratulate you. And I think you're with it.
Not hardly. Rex can do all that stuff. I don't even want to touch that.
Everything you're saying is absolutely true, and it seems that there is a disconnect, and I hope that can be definitely remedied, especially with your program specifically in mind, and the other school sports as well. Just that they have opportunities. That's the biggest thing. Opportunities. Yeah. JV baseball as well, or anything, any of your JV sports. I'm just
anytime somebody asks me, should I have a JV team? My answer is always yes. Even if it's just practicing them and limited games, I will never. The 1 year I didn't have it is a huge regret for me, and I just didn't have the numbers. So we've got to make sure that those programs stay around for a long time and that we continue to put our time and energy where it needs to be. And I think that's how we get more competitive in everything, honestly. But we'll see.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I know we've I'm sure gone a little long. That's okay. I wanted to, at some point, I want to talk with you a little bit about just the college prospects of some of your players. I feel like you have some certain, I believe you have several players that could really compete at the next level. I'm not, even, maybe at your Mars Hills, or, I know you know a lot about the Mars Hill, or the Lees McCrae's, or even, maybe even larger institutions. I don't know, but just curious to see how that's going. Talk to you a little bit about recruiting a little bit, and just kind of the aspects of what you guys are doing as coaches to help get the word out about your players and their potential academically, athletically to do what they do and be able to.
I mean, it was cool. Greensboro College was here for the first Heritage game, and it was cool to see them there. Aaron was actually at Mars Hill. He's who recruited Hannah in Heaven. He was coaching at Owen and beat us over there with a mean triangle and two. Back in the day when we had Hannah in Heaven and Kinsey and all those girls, and he actually went on to Mars Hill, and now he's at Greensboro College. And just talking right now to some of those coaches is really cool. Being able to promote those girls in a way that they deserve to be promoted, helping them find the balance between getting on the travel ball circuit and doing things. Yanni comes from a very different background. She played a lot of Legion basketball kind of nationally for a whole year. So, that's a different animal in terms of how her recruiting platform.
Right.
The exposure is insane. It's so much higher. But I do hope that our local coaches start to really pay attention to what's in their back door, and hopefully they'll get some consistency in those coaches. I know Lees McCrae's got a new coach. Mars Hill has a new coach. Mars Hill's coach is at Lenore Ryan, so just really right now praying for those girls, because that's a big decision. And, it's a definitely a full-time job as a college athlete. So just trying to figure out if that's something they want to continue to do. I do think that we have a handful of kids on our team who could definitely go and play at the next level. Some of them, don't want to. Some of them just want to go on to school, and that's totally fine. But for those who do want to, we're just slowly working through the process of getting some film out there and get some exposure and doing all the things. So it's a blessing to have that. And, I just want to help them make good decisions and put them in a as a student, because they're as a student.
No, got another breakup with the internet. Sorry about that. Don't know if
just helping them make a good choice about college. And I'm their high school counselor, so I get to have a lot of voice in that too. So that's a really cool process.
That's great. That's awesome to hear. And again, we'll we'll try to talk a little more about these prospects as it comes along. I mean, these ladies and just how potential they have. I appreciate you sharing that here now. But again, Coach, thank you so much for the time. I always appreciate you visiting with us each week. And again, we look forward to hopefully getting games in. We're hoping down at Mountain Heritage Friday.
I just want to practice.
Go to the gym, right?
Yeah, we may need community support to go get some people out of their driveways tomorrow.
You get those police escorts when you all go to regionals and stuff. Maybe you can make a call to the sheriff's office, get the police escort over to the gym.
I'm gonna have to, whatever it takes at this point.
Get the DOT on the line. Hey, we need you to do some road. We need our driveways. We need these girls out.
For sure.
But Coach, thank you for the time again. We appreciate it again, Big Mike's Coffee Shop. Unfortunately, not able to be there in person this week, but we still just want to thank Mike and Jackie Nelson, rather it is, for their sponsorship and work with the Coaches Show, as well as Kenny Johnson, of course, coaching, staging, delivering mail, playing music. He's a Renaissance man. He just is.
Red light extraordinaire.
Yeah, the red light guy. So you red lights in the gym. With the starting lineups, you know who did it. It's Kenny. So we appreciate all his work with staging and entertainment, and just hope that if you have any needs, to reach out to Kenny as well and his fine staff. Coach, again, thank you so much for the time. We look forward to catching you on Friday at Mountain Heritage. Best of luck in those matchups with them and Hampton, the Lady Bulldogs, on Saturday. And we'll catch back up with you hopefully next Tuesday, I hope. We'll see.
Yep.
All right, Coach.
Yeah, thanks.
Appreciate it. Take care. Thank you.